Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast with myself, Sam Hill, and as always, I'm joined by
Tovey
and
Ben Thomas.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Natasha Jonas Mikaela fight at the weekend, listening to some audio clips from the world of boxing, talking about the possibility of Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney coming to Saudi Arabia, and then previewing next weekend's fights as well. But before we get into that, Harry, we'll start with you. How was your weekend?
Really good. Good birthday weekend. Full day of darts yesterday, went to the rugby. Obviously, they got battered. And then this morning, tried to queue up for Manchester United tickets for a certain Newport County, and
They sold out already.
I was selecting a seat, and then, I don't know. Here's what it is, ain't it?
It just wasn't happening. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, not too bad. A bit of football, Welsh Cup final. Stayed away from Cardiff because they just falling apart to the minute.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going great, is it?
You were at Leeds, weren't you?
I was up at Leeds, yeah. I was watching the football, seeing my grandma. And interestingly, I was talking to my grandma. Fun fact for you boys here. So my grandma's from Edinburgh, and it turns out I am the relative of not just one, but two Olympic medalists in boxing.
Oh, wow.
And a former world title holder. He beat Jimmy Wilde, arguably the best flyweight of all time, from Treharris. So a local lad in Covent Garden for the world title.
Wow.
There's a fun fact for you there that I found out this weekend. So
I don't think I've got any close relatives that have done that, or any relatives at all.
I wouldn't say close relatives. It's my great uncles
Dogs.
and my great uncle. So it's a fair stretch on that one. But yeah, so this is fate. I come from boxing pedigree.
Do you come from any boxing pedigree, Ben?
No, I don't think so. Even though I'm from Merth, plenty of good boxers.
You got the
from
fighting in your DNA, though.
That's close enough, isn't it? Well, yeah, Jimmy Wilde. I don't know if you know the name. He was like 108 wins or something. He's arguably he's known as the best flyweight of all time.
Yeah, but back in the day, they used to fight like every week, didn't they?
Yeah, they fight like 7-8 times a year, 20 rounds as well, which is mental, absolutely mental. But to go to a different fight or a set of fights that weren't 20 rounds and weren't for any world. Well, there was world titles in the main card. But to start at the bottom, obviously Mark Jeffers got a pretty comfortable victory over Jermaine Brown to win the English Super, or I think it was to defend maybe his English Super.
He's defending the English.
His Super middle title. And there was a lot of people saying that perhaps Jeffers probably should have had the shot at the main card against Cullen, based off the fact that he's beaten Chelly and it seems everyone's beaten Chelly other than possibly Jack Cullen now. But I don't know if you guys watched that fight, but it's Jeffers is 16-17-0 now, so he's a big fighter and one that we need to start maybe giving some big fights to.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting mix between the four of them. Obviously with Jeff, as he's already beaten Chelly, but Chelly's now British champion, so it'll be British against English champion if they do our next. Or I think ringside Callum Simpson was ace, so he'll probably get thrown in the mix. I think they might set it up as Callum Simpson against Zach Chelly and then do Jeff as against Simpson, depending on how our fight goes.
Yeah, and so obviously to move up, you were saying, Harry, you were really looking forward to the McKenna-Udofia fight.
But and then he pulled out, didn't he?
He pulled out
Unbelievable.
With supposed injury. McKenna wasn't buying it, and by the looks of things, nor was Harry. But obviously he ended up fighting Mickey Ellison, 14-6.
He actually had an opponent.
There was no belt on the line, but he won in the 8th round. Pretty standard fight, and then obviously to move on up to the Jack Cullen Zach Chelly fight. Chelly was reasonably impressive. I mean, it was a close fight. I think I saw a couple of people on Twitter saying it was the other way, and I mean, we'll go on to something a bit more like that later. But yeah,
I wonder which fight.
Were you surprised by Chelly in terms of the performance he gave compared to what we go into the fight seeing that he's lost to half the card, it seemed?
Well, I've seen him box before, and I think that was the best Zach Chelly we've seen on Saturday night. To go and beat Jack Cullen takes some doing, because Jack Cullen's got that pedigree of, what was it, a couple of years ago he was fighting big names, and he's dropping back down a bit, but yeah, fair play to Zach Chelly. At least the judges scored this fight the way it should have been.
Yeah, I think
that's a good thing.
Cullen's big, mind. He looks He's
big
he
for
looks huge for is it a super middleweight? I think he is, Cullen.
Yeah.
But for a super middleweight, he looks tall. I think he must be like 6'2", 6'3". And Chelly done well to beat him, and I'd say deserved to do so.
Yeah, I think when we were looking at it last week, if you didn't look at the records, you probably would have thought Chelly was the better fighter. But I think he deserved the win. But obviously, we weren't expecting him to get the win, I don't think, last week. But he's pulled off, like you said, probably the best performance he's had yet to get the win. So fair play to him.
Yeah, and then moving on to the main card. Obviously, me and you, Harry, were right. We were right.
I think we said Natasha Jonas. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we were right, and deservedly so. No, to put that aside, it's been said pretty widely that it's a bit of a robbery for Maya.
100%.
Obviously, coming off the back of her against, was it Baumgartling, was a bit of a
back to back. Is it? It's not back to back fights.
No, she's had one in the go. But how unlucky was Maya to not get that decision on the day in Liverpool?
I'm still filming with it. I thought I had a prediction right, and I was just like,
you did say unanimous, didn't you?
I was so confident with my prediction last week, and I thought I've got it, and then I was just like, I felt sorry for her, to be fair.
How can one judge score in 97, 93, and then the other one so close together, 96, 94, 96, 95? What are they watching?
I think if our fight is anywhere else other than Liverpool, she doesn't get that decision.
No, 100%.
Yeah, it's a shame. And I think the thing that is more of a shame for me is that I really did want Jonas to win. I really, really wanted her to win. Not only did I think she would win, but I wanted her to win. But then you see this and you think, well, no, I didn't want her to win like this. I wanted her to actually win. So yeah, from that point of view, it's a shame, and obviously Maya's going to be disappointed. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And I've got an audio clip on it a little bit later, so we can probably go into it in more detail. But we'll unanimously say that Maya probably should have won it. Should we go for that?
Clearly won it.
I definitely think she did.
But if you watched it back without commentary, maybe.
I did.
Your opinion.
I watched it without commentary.
Really?
I watched it without commentary.
Or did you watch it with like Italian commentators?
No.
No.
I was in my. I had Match of the Day on. My dad was watching Match of the Day, and because I didn't get great data in my grandma's house, so I was in the living room, and I was watching it, and I had it down as a comfortable victory.
What did your nan say? Who does she think won?
She was in bed.
Oh.
But she probably would have said. She probably would have said Maya, because I don't think she likes Scousers. I might have made that up. But
all the Scousers are coming out and saying that she clearly won. Tony Bellew, Nick Pete, a journalist, saying that she clearly won.
Bonkers from Bellew. I like Tony Bellew, but he is chatting out of his arse with that one. And to move on to something a bit more fun, quickly, and then we'll circle back round to this when we look at some of the audio clips. We had the Misfits fights on the weekend. Obviously Pineda was the mystery opponent. Did you say that, didn't you?
I called Pineda, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
When I saw Ginty came running out like the Ultimate Warrior, and then it was Swarms and then B Dave.
Yeah, they brought all three of them out.
Do you know, I thought they were going to do a fatal four-way, what they did before.
Tag team.
Yeah.
No, and obviously Pineda. I think the problem I have with Pineda, and it's not a problem necessarily, but we've got to remember the guy is actually a professional boxer and has had professional fights prior to becoming...
Not a big level though, is it?
No, but it is a bit unfair. You're sticking him with YouTubers. I mean, we were saying like, finally KSI is fighting a professional when KSI fought him, and he is at the end of the day a professional boxer that's fighting him, and he obviously knocked Ed Matthews out the ring.
That's embarrassing, ain't it?
He done it after getting dropped as well. He got dropped early, but I think Ed Matthews, he just goes storming in, and he's got no fitness.
Yeah. All his fights that he's won have been in the first round, so he doesn't have any.
Yeah, if he doesn't finish someone within like the first minute, he's probably going to lose because he just hasn't got the fitness to maintain it. He just dies out, and as soon as he gets a punch landed on him, and just drops him.
What's his mate called? HS.
Tiki-Taki, yeah.
He was saying he didn't train well, so he prepared to fail basically.
Yeah, but he was sparring him, so.
Yeah, true.
Like they were sparring each other. So.
Yeah,
but what would you do if you signed a contract and it was a mystery opponent? How would you train for it?
I would just train hard against anyone and everyone. You just spar random people.
Yeah, you've at least got to get your fitness up.
Oh yeah,
just go to an actual boxing gym and just spar their boxers. Whether you're losing or winning or not, then if you're fighting actual boxers or proper amateur boxers, then there's nothing that other than maybe Pineda could bring that you wouldn't, be ready for. And then to sort of go down the card, I mean, Elle Brooke absolutely folded AJ Bunker in that one.
First female influence in boxing knockout, was it?
I think it might be one of the first, and it's certainly the biggest.
Well,
and I think not Logan Paul got absolutely folded as well. I think Tristan Ham got folded by OJ Rose. It was mental.
Did that referee not stop that though? With that, not Logan Paul.
He was wobbling all over the place. His gum shield was out. Yeah, it was. But that's the way the Polish boxing.
What's this as well? Polish boxing.
It's temporary boxing.
How can that happen in the UK though?
I don't know.
I think they can just pick and choose whoever they want by the looks.
So technically, then Conor Benn could fight in the UK under the Polish
boxing control. They're the European equivalent of Nevada, I'm sure. But yeah, it was obviously the other card was on at a similar time, so I didn't watch it, but it seemed like it was a bit of fun for one of the Misfits cards that didn't have any of the sort of huge names that we've seen fight previously on it. And then to move on to some of the audio clips, I'll start with Maya's reaction to the fight afterwards and what she said in the ring. After the Natasha Jonas fight and talking about possibilities in the future.
I thought I did enough to win. I would have given her the first round or two, but after that I feel like I outpunched her and landed the cleaner shots. At the end of the day, I think that fight is worth seeing again. Like she said, one of the toughest fights she had. I think the fans really enjoyed it. So thank you to everyone who showed out tonight. I didn't have a rematch clause on my side, but I'm hoping we can get this fight done again for the fans if they want it.
So obviously Maya's calling quite heavily for a rematch. And I mean, would you guys like to see a rematch to give her the opportunity to vindicate itself, or for Jonas to put in a performance that warranted the result she got in the first fight? Is that a fight you'd want to see, or do you think it's one of those where they just need to, go their separate ways and move on with their careers?
I think she deserves a rematch, but I don't think she's going to get it. I don't think Jonas will risk going back, because it depends on how she looks. I think with the backlash of the prediction, the result, she might want to go and try and put out a bit of a statement to say, I'm better than her, but she said after the fight that it looks like it's going to be her last year in boxing, so I think she'll look elsewhere for her fights. But
is she busy though for her last year in boxing? Is she going to fight a handful of times?
I think, maybe the Lauren Price fight, which could be next.
Fight, maybe.
I can't see many other fights, so the rematch might be on there. I think Maya deserves it because I still don't think she lost the fight, but it's definitely one I want to watch again. It was a good fight, even though I thought it was the wrong decision. It was a good fight. It wasn't as if it was completely one-sided. No. So I wouldn't mind watching it again.
Proper slugfest, wasn't it? They were both going at it from the first bell, which is what we want to see in boxing, ain't it?
Yeah. I mean, Jonas won the early rounds, I think, and then it was more or less Maya from there on out. But again, she was landing shots, Jonas. It wasn't that she wasn't landing. It was just, I think Maya seemed either big. Well, she was obviously taller, but she seemed just, even though she's jumped up in weight recently, she seemed the sort of more natural fighter, bigger at that weight, and she was closing down Jonas well, and Jonas was just backing herself up onto the ring rather than trying to fight inside against the taller fighter. So maybe if there is a rematch that you may see a better fight from Jonas's point of view, because she'll know what to do. But I think, unfortunately for Maya, it's just not a fight that makes sense for Jonas.
No. She's won it now, hasn't she? So she's just going to go another way.
And I'd rather watch Price versus Jonas and give Price the opportunity of winning that IBF belt.
After that performance, I reckon Lauren Price can do a job on Jonas, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good fight to watch. And Jonas definitely did have a moment in the fight. She picked some good shots, good body shots, and could see the power behind her. But yeah, her and Lauren Price would be a good one. Or if they do get the rematch, Maya was on about making it 3-minute rounds, either 10 3-minute rounds or doing a 12 2-minute rounds, which could make a difference for her that way.
Yeah, it could be interesting.
We want more from it as well, don't we? It was so good that it was too quick.
It was a very
it's like you
good
blink
fight.
and it's over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I didn't think it played into Jonas's benefit, the 2 minutes rounds. I think she didn't have enough time to build herself into any of the rounds, and then you start chasing rounds because you're losing and you start overthinking things. Whereas when you got that 3 minutes, you can lose the first minute and you have time to sort of build yourself back into the round and start building up a rhythm and going on to win, which she wasn't able to do. But that's it's an interesting couple names to look out for in the future, and maybe Maya will turn her attention to Baumgartner, or I forget her name, that she lost to. Now that fight has been cleared, and then to move away from that and back to some influencer boxing, just for a quick one. We've got a possible influencer fight that's being called for at the moment, and we can have a look at who's fighting and whether or not we'd want to see it.
I'm hearing Joe Weller. He wants to go on Misfits. Hey, me and Joe, I think that sells out major pay-per-views, man. So Danny Aaron versus Joe Weller, make it happen, man.
If you fight Joe Weller, what happens?
I like Joe Weller, man. I like Joe, but let's be fair. I got this coming for him, all right? And I reckon, depends how long the fight is. I want 6 rounds. I'd knock him out in 5.
So a pretty bold claim from Danny to say that he would knock out Weller in 5, and even to do 6 rounds in your first fight is quite a big thing. But I get the sense Danny's been training behind the scenes, ready for any possible Misfits call. Is that a fight you'd want to see now that the Bazinga fight seems to have somewhat fallen through?
has it?
I think
throughout the week they were talking that Bazinga has got an offer now and he's just playing around with it.
Maybe.
There's a few potential options there, but
Danny Aaron's Joe Weller.
he's stuck himself right.
What is he doing?
I'd like to see Danny fight because I think it'd be the build-up would be
He wants
funny.
that little American guy, don't he? That Jack Doherty or something.
Yeah.
You see a lot of him on social media.
Did you see the thing? Danny tweeted something, and the guy replied to Danny saying something, and Danny just replied to him saying "Shut up, you cunt," which is it's the equivalent of the KSI one where Jake Paul was like, "Oh, I really rate this, bro," and he was like, "Fuck off." So yeah, I think it'd be whatever Danny does will be an interesting fight if he does get in the ring, and I think he does train behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Well, you can see that with it. He looks completely different now, don't he?
Yeah, and he does a lot of boxing. So it's one of those ones where you see someone come in at quite a high level rather than going from 0 to somewhere, which is always better for the sort of the look of it all.
Yeah, he's clearly interested in getting himself involved in it, but I don't know whether a 6-round fight against Joe Weller in your first fight is going to be the one to start with. If he goes in there and beats him, then fair enough, but I think he should start maybe.
He's obviously seen the paycheck, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's thinking of the money a bit. But
he's given Bazinga a bell and said, "What are they offering you, lad?" And he's heard the numbers and he's like, "Oh, I fancy a bit."
He's probably better off though in the long term building himself up to that fight rather than having one fight and getting beaten, and then not as many people are going to want to see you fight again. Then
I think the problem Danny will have as well is we've said he's lost a lot of weight and he's looking in a good way, but he's losing fat to get down to his weight. And Weller is
building
big muscle. So yes, he might be a similar weight to Weller, but the sort of body compositions are quite different, and it might be that Weller just is able to bully him at that weight, and he might maybe want to look at someone maybe a little bit lower than weight than him, that he could then continue dropping to sort of have a bit more of a fair fight in terms of
Ginty, Danny Aaron's.
Yeah, something like that I think would be a bit more to start off with. I just think throwing himself straight in, if he's willing to do it, then fair enough. If he thinks, obviously he's confident. I don't know whether it's false confidence or whether he can actually beat him or whether he's just getting in there for the money. But
what about what's his girl? Danny Aaron's girlfriend's ex is Digger D, the rapper. Danny Aaron's versus Digger D, get it done. I'd pay to watch that.
That's on a pay-per-view fight already.
That would be anyway. Moving away from that bit of fun, we're going to move away from someone who is also having his fun with boxing. Turki Alalshikh had a chat with Adi Oladipo in some quite depth, and I mean we could have done a whole episode just listening to audio clips of this, but
What's an interview?
I've picked out 2. two interesting talking points from this fight, from the interview. And the first one is Turki Alalshikh talking a little bit about the situation with boxing at the moment and why he's doing what he's doing.
Before, in our generation, we see all the greatest fighters. If I ask you, give me 20 or 30 names about athletes in America, half of them in the 70 of the 80, you will say boxer.
Boxers.
No?
All of them.
No, give me name.
No, we struggle.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting point from him, from His Excellency, I should say, saying that obviously in the 70s and 80s, if you picked out the big names in America, half of them, if not more, would have been boxers. And these days, that's not really the same. And we're seeing particularly some of the big American fighters struggling to sell out arenas and sell out stadiums. Is that, is that the business of boxing has got in the way of creating these superstars? And thanks to His Excellency, we're seeing these big fights. And so we're seeing the big fighters against the big fighters, and it's just raising their names to a scale where it maybe could be on, similar level to the past, where we saw them, be the biggest names in the world.
Yeah, I think it's so much political stuff going on behind the scenes in it, where it's stopping fights, and there's so many, especially with the American fighters, there's so many different fights you could pour on out there, but for some reason or another, just half the time they're not happening, and I think especially American audience are just not sort of getting involved in it as maybe they were back when you had bigger fighters. But with obviously what he's trying to do, taking them all to Saudi Arabia now, maybe that will start to build a bit more of an audience out. Not just America, but everywhere else as well.
I think in America, UFC's now taken over boxing by a country mile. So
yeah, I think it's more just because they put on the fights that fans do want to see a bit more, whereas with boxing, people are waiting around so long for them fights, and then sometimes when they come along, they're just too late, to the point where it's just not as interesting.
Is that because there's only one belt in the UFC, maybe? That's why they're making maybe that's why it's easier to make the big fights?
Yeah, I still stand by the argument of if they had one belt instead of 4 separate belts, it'd be better for the sport, but I can't see that happening anytime soon. But at least we're now getting to a point where someone is luckily got the money to put on these fights that the fans actually want to see, and I think over the next few years, if he carries on to be involved, then you're going to probably see some of the biggest fights we've seen in a good few years.
Yeah, it's nice to we're seeing a bit of a resurgence with boxing, and particularly heavyweight boxing, that we haven't seen for a little while. I mean, I think if you look at the top 10 biggest fights, the biggest pay-per-view fights in America over the last 25 years, the most recent one is Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor. So since Floyd's left, the numbers over there have died in terms of size, and I think Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya is on the top 10, and obviously more and more people
Jake
have
Paul's on it.
Yeah, more and more people have TVs and have access to things these days that they do, and people are online more and more. So really, you'd think that these numbers would be going up. But the fact that they're coming down, it does need something. And if His Excellency is that man, then there's no complaints from me.
Could it be down to the pay-per-view costs in America, though? Because when I was over there, I was looking at paying for stuff, and it was like $75, and you're thinking, hang on a minute.
Find a Wetherspoons.
Yeah, I think it's the cost of
My
it.
VPN wasn't working.
Alongside, in America, there's so much going on. There's so many different sports you go. It is quite big for sport.
You go to a bar, there's TV up there showing volleyball, boxing,
there's
baseball.
so many different options. I think, obviously, with the price involved and probably not getting the fights that the American audience want to see, they go in towards different sports and not taking as much of an interest. But hopefully, over the next few years, we'll see, like you said, since Mayweather, there hasn't been a massive interest, but hopefully we'll see a bit of a change over the next couple of years.
Well, then, to talk about a possible big fight that might continue to bolster the size of boxing as a viewer entity, we've got His Excellency talking more on some of the fights that he wants to make in the future?
We don't stop. The people need to see Fury Usyk and the rematch between Fury Usyk, Joshua Fury Joshua, if Joshua win. And I send message from you now, the result of Arturo and Pavel play against Obutaya. And the fans want to see this fight. I want fighters.
Real fighters.
I want fighters.
So we'll take that sort of one at a time. We'll first go that he's saying, he obviously said Fury Usyk, or Usyk Fury, so possibility of a rematch there, result dependent, and the same for Joshua Fury. He's pretty much confirmed that he has planned to do that, and if Joshua beats Fury, he sees there being a rematch in there. So in terms of that, I mean, those are some huge fights. Those are 4 huge fights for boxing, just off the bat that he's saying. How much would you guys like to see the rematches, or are you wanting to see, one and done, whoever wins, or is that are we just gonna then rush through the heavyweight division and be left with no fights to make?
It's all according how they win. If Fury wins easily against Usyk, then I don't want to see a rematch. But if it's a close 12-round fight, then yeah, give me a rematch, and potentially put Beterbiev and Bivol on the same card as them in June. Are they trying to do that?
Yeah, that's what they're looking for in June, I believe.
Yeah, I suppose if you're going to have the rematch, you could stick it on in June with them.
That'd make it even bigger, wouldn't it?
I know he's got the plans for all these fights, but I think the majority of the plans are going to come down massively to Fury, depending on where his head is at. So I think if he beats Usyk in February, I think that could be him finishing after that.
Maybe.
I think if he loses, he'll win the rematch, but I think if he beats him, I think he might be happy to call it a day at that point, and he'll avoid the Joshua fight.
Yeah, and then
not avoid it as in he's scared to fight him, but he'll just think, I've done what I've needed to do.
Yeah, retire happy. And then to move on from it, I mean, the big call saying the winner of Bivol Beterbiev is going to fight Jai Opetaia. I mean, I don't know what weight class that would be in at, whether it be in a cruiser or light heavyweight. And I mean, for me, I think if you're talking Bivol Opetaia, I don't know if that's a fight I want to see, because I think Opetaia would take his head off. Just because I just don't think Bivol has the strength to deal with someone as powerful as Opetaia. And then with Beterbiev, I mean, if Beterbiev goes on to beat Bivol, I mean, Beterbiev versus Opetaia, that's the perfect challenge of...
That's the fight.
Can Beterbiev be stopped? If anyone's going to have the knockout power to stop Beterbiev, is Jai Opetaia that man?
I think that's going to be one of the best fights to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just mad with boxing how it's gone from, over the last few years, you looking forward to the big fights every now and then, to you could have a massive fight on pretty much every card coming up throughout the year now. You've obviously got Bivol and Beterbiev, Opetaia you could throw in there. You got Dan Aziz and Boatsi fighting in February. The mandatory challenger then for Bivol. I think whoever wins that for the WBC. So there's so much going on, so much potential fights. So it's a good time for boxing.
What about you, Harry? Is that a fight you want to see, Bivol, or Bivol / Beterbiev versus Opetaia?
Turki Alalshikh, he's going to do what he wants, ain't he? He wants anyone. Anyone can come to... He said as well in that interview that he wanted Wilder AJ. He's going to try and rebuild up Wilder by giving him another fight, see how he gets on, and then put him in against AJ. So,
and I think Ngannou wants Wilder. So if Ngannou loses to AJ, then possibly you put Ngannou versus Wilder to sort of test Ngannou at that sort of level. And I'm sure Wilder will, I'll go on Turkey, I'll take a couple million and get in the ring for you.
Couple tens of millions.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I suppose you could put Joshua Wilder in June if they do the rematch of Fury Usyk. Mm-hmm. You could have Joshua Wilder as a separate fight.
Bivol, and then Ngannou maybe.
Yeah, you could stick Ngannou in there somewhere.
Or is he going to go to PFL now? Because in the last week as well, PFL signed a massive fight night with them and Bellator. So Turki Alalshikh's probably going to have Francis Ngannou with PFL over in Saudi Arabia as well. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. And I think now we've sort of spoke about it a little bit. I think in my head the ideal scenario would be that Beterbiev beats Bivol. Bivol fights the Aziz Bouatsi winner, and Beterbiev fights Jai Opetaia. I mean, that would be some boxing. But you can't write these things in boxing, and you can't write who's going to win. And whoever does win, we'll see that in the future. And then moving on to someone else who really needs to win and is preparing to do so. We've got Frank Warren, who was talking to I can't remember who he was talking to actually, but he was talking in his box in the Emirates as he was doing this interview. And he spoke a little bit on Fury's camp at the moment and how that's going as he prepares for Alexander Usyk.
Big Tyson's in training camp and getting ready for the showdown that we all want to see against Alexander Usyk. How is he?
Yeah, I was messaging him yesterday, and he's good. He's working very hard. He's got some good sparring partners over there. Opetaia's with him, Moses Atumi and a few others, and he's doing good. He's doing well. He's looking forward to it. We're a month away now.
So the reason, well, actually, when I selected this audio clip to include, the information hadn't been made alight. So Opetaia was part of the Fury camp, but he has now left the Fury camp after only 5 rounds of sparring with Fury.
That's concerning.
There's a lot of talk and rumours going round about why they only fought 5 rounds. People saying that Opetaia dropped Fury, and that's why he's no longer there. His own team have come out and said that wasn't the case. Neither fighter got dropped, but it does seem bizarre that only 5 rounds were fought. There'll be a reason for that one. I don't think Opetaia would have flown out to Saudi Arabia just to fight 5 rounds with Fury. So, are we clutching at straws and thinking things, or is Opetaia just that guy and has slapped around Fury and they don't want that in their camp?
I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? Like you said, just 5 rounds and then leaving afterwards after getting him in obviously preparation. Something's obviously gone wrong somewhere, but
we haven't seen much of him as well, have we? Tyson Fury.
So I'm sure we're gonna probably hear a bit more throughout the week now of what might have happened, whether it was Fury getting hurt or Fury hurting Opetaia maybe, but yeah, something doesn't seem right there.
I think for me as well, the thing that sort of I think about when I think of it is I don't know why you'd select Jai Opetaia as a preparation for Usyk. I mean, that just seems like,
it's too good of an opponent they need to work with.
And just style-wise, just such a different fighter to Usyk. I mean, Usyk's been fighting with a certain fighter, and I can't remember his name, but he's been fighting with someone who was part of the Fury camp, is 6'4", 6'5", big guy. So he knows Fury. He can replicate the style a little bit, and that's possibly a bit more. But then Opetaia, I mean, he's just nothing like Usyk. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head who you necessarily get in that would fight like Usyk, but certainly Jai Opetaia seems this sort of antithesis of Usyk rather than a similarity.
Yeah, I think it's harder to find someone who fights like Usyk compared to someone who fights like Fury. Like Usyk, you're gonna be expecting him to. He's gonna be constantly moving. He's constantly twitching, and it's hard to find a fighter of his style. Whereas with Usyk preparing, he's gonna find a big heavyweight that's gonna just lean on him.
Big heavyweight. He's found a big heavyweight.
He has, yeah.
Senel Hasanovic,
that's the
Serbian giant, 6'8".
Yeah.
So big guy has sparred with Fury in a number of Fury's previous camps, so he knows how Fury fights, and I think they do it quite a lot. In boxing, where they try and get people who can replicate styles a little bit more, and if he's seen a lot of Fury in front of him, he might be able to try and emulate that in some way for Usyk.
Yeah, obviously Usyk's expecting Fury to come in heavy and just try and, as he's done a lot before, just use his weight, lean on people, tire them out that way and finish them off late. Or the only thing is whether Fury can pin Usyk down, because Usyk's so quick and clever. His footwork is probably one of the best out there, and to be able to pin him down and finish him is going to be a different question altogether.
Usyk's not going to knock Fury out. I think we can all agree on that. The only way Usyk wins is by outboxing Tyson Fury, in my opinion. Luke Littler did an interview, didn't he? I thought we were going to hear his interview on here, actually, but quite sad that we haven't got it. He said that Fury has to knock Usyk out, otherwise Usyk outboxes him, and I have to agree with him.
I think that's a good take. I think that's pretty much what we've said. I mean,
very smart for a 17-year-old.
Maybe we need to get Littler on the podcast, see what he has to say about.
We'll skip on that.
Do you not think that Usyk could finish Fury late?
No.
Fury's...
Usyk hasn't stopped a heavyweight, has he?
If he's out on his feet, though.
No, has he? Witherspoons, maybe? When he made his debut, he might have stopped him, but I'm not too sure.
Stopped the ball.
So,
come on now.
So Usyk has...
Dubois' head wasn't right, because he should have won with a body shot.
Usyk has had 6 heavyweight fights, and he is 1 fight away from wiping out the entire division and getting all the belts.
Mad.
It's some achievement. If you could 6 fight clear a division, that is pretty damn impressive from Usyk, and we'll see what happens. Me and Ben have our opinions, and you have yours. And then to move on from that,
when I'm right,
we've got 2 other people that have sometimes fallen out on a few things, but are now working together, much like we are currently. This is once again Frank Warren talking about Riyadh season as a whole, and of course talking about him and Eddie Hearn and how on earth that's now happening.
It's enjoyable, and we're doing something we all want to do, because we're all boxing. You know, as much as we're promoters, we're business rivals, we're boxing fans, and we're managing now through, basically down to the involvement of His Excellency Turki Alalshikh and the Riyadh season, putting some great fights together now that we probably under normal circumstances may not have happened or would have taken a long time to happen, and putting cards on that we just simply couldn't afford to do. They would run at a loss.
So to start off with, we'll talk about His Excellency, because we don't mention him all that often on this podcast, so I think maybe we need to talk about him a bit more. He's making fights that just wouldn't happen or would take a long time to happen, or more importantly making cards that would run at a loss. I think that's maybe Warren suggesting that they probably do still run at a loss, but he's just happy to take that loss. And then obviously them working together, we're now seeing, and I think Warren said it's been quite refreshing to work with Eddie, but that might just be a bit of sweet talk. What are you guys making of the whole thing in terms of specifically with Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren now working together as fighters? As fighting promoters, not as fighters.
I think they've seen the paycheck and think, we're idiots if we say no to this. I'm going to shake his hand and pretend that I like him, but they're doing it for the money, aren't they? Are they doing it for the better of boxing? Maybe, but they're doing it for the money.
I think the better of boxing is a nice addition to the situation. I think the fact that it is benefiting boxing and benefiting themselves slightly is a nice little thing, but I think they've basically realised that it is more financially beneficial to work with His Excellency and each other than try and work solo and not benefiting Eddie Hearn and Matchroom or Queensberry. So they've realised it's more beneficial just to take the win together rather than lose separately.
Yeah, if they wanted to benefit boxing, they could have worked this out a long time ago. But it's funny how once all this extra money gets involved, it's shake hands, make up, and best friends now. But obviously money talks, and it's for the best of boxing. Really, we're going to be able to see fights now that we probably would have never have seen without his involvement, and I'm really looking forward to now. Obviously they've signed the contract for Matchroom and Queensberry 5v5, and it probably won't be the only one we see. If it's a successful card, it could be something they do every year, really, and they could get, I don't know, obviously we've got other promotions out there that have not quite been involved yet with the whole Saudi boxing scene, but someone else that they could get involved.
It's like an amateur feeling, ain't it? A 5v5, Queensberry and Matchroom. I think Eddie Hearn said that he wants, even if his fighter loses, he's going to stay ringside and chant and scream and support. So
yeah, because realistically, if there's no draws on the card, then someone's going to at least win 3-2. So it's going to...
Yeah, they were smart about the 5.
They're going to have... Someone's going to have one over on the other, and then it's going to be a thing of wanting to get revenge in it. So
are we going to make an early prediction that Matchroom win 5-0?
It depends what fights are made, to be honest. It depends. But I tend to think, and we'll touch on this in much more detail at the later in the week when we're doing an extra episode, and we'll talk about some of the fights that we wanted to see, and rank them. For my fights I've put together, I think that Matchroom will probably come out on top.
Yeah.
But you could make a set of fights that go the other way around. I've also noticed that me and Ben are both representing Saudi Green at the moment, and you're not, Harry.
I didn't get the map. No, my mic screen.
Your mic screen. Oh, we're all right then. We're all in.
Normally it's orange, but it's been nicked.
A bit of a switch around this week. And to move on to a fight that we probably wouldn't see because it would take too long.
Green boxers on.
Of course you do. Yeah. Of course you do. To move on to another fight that we probably wouldn't have seen if it wasn't for His Excellency, and he's trying to make. There was it's official, or it was said by Michael Benson that His Excellency has said he wants to bring Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney to fight in Saudi Arabia. That's a fight I've called for quite a lot. Interestingly, it's the first one that His Excellency has said, I want to see Haney in my country. I will try and do it in 2024. This is probably the first time we've seen a bit of doubt from His Excellency in terms of whether or not he can make a fight happen. He seemed to just make claims and back himself to make it happen. Do you think that's a fight he's able to make, or do you think that Eddie and Warren are working with him quite closely, which is why that can happen, and when he has to go over to some of these people he hasn't worked with previously, that there might be a few issues?
I'm sure Turki Alalshikh's got a couple of million just to chuck at him, even if they say no. How about 10 million? No. 20 million? All right.
Yeah, I suppose he's still going to have to build the relationship. Like I said, we haven't really seen many of the American fighters go over to Saudi yet, and it might be a thing that they are not interested in. I don't see why not with the money involved, but maybe they will just want to stay in America. And I don't know whether it's like, it seems to be a bit more a thing with some American fighters of protecting their record a bit more, so I think they're sometimes a bit more selective over who they're going to fight, so it might be a bit harder to get the fights together, but I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him with the amount of money he can throw at him.
It's the promotions as well, ain't it?
Yeah.
As you said, they're working closely together with Queensberry and Matchroom. They haven't gone off track to other promotions, like, who was it, Oscar De La Hoya? We will miss him.
Yeah, this is it just has to happen, Gervonta Davis versus Devin Haney.
It will happen. I think we can be confident that it will happen. Turki Alalshikh will work his magic.
In His Excellency we trust. In Allah we trust. Yeah. And then to move on to...
move on.
How would that be? To move on to the fights that are happening this coming week. We'll continue on the theme of American, well, not American, actually, no lie, he's Mexican, but you've got Jaime Munguia fighting John Ryder.
What a pronunciation that was.
God,
you said it.
So Jaime Munguia, 42-0, John Ryder.
He said it twice to show off. Though.
Yeah, 32-6.
Times. You can't.
Jaime Munguia.
Oh, wow.
So that, it's 42-0. Anyone with that sort of record has got to have something about them. And John Ryder's obviously a top British super middle. How do you guys see that fight going? Do you think John Ryder has a chance, or do you think that, ready for this, Jaime Munguia is just too good for him?
You like that name too much, do you?
He's going to have to start quick, I think, and really put Munguia on the back foot. I'm not going to try and pronounce it.
I like it.
Yeah, when I talk about it, I'm going to say Sam. Point to him, and then he says it.
No, I got that.
But 42-0, 33 knockout wins. He's only 27 as well. He's been a pro since he was 17. So he's plenty of experience. He probably hasn't had as many huge fights as the record would suggest. But obviously Ryder's coming off the back of losing to Canelo last year. Unanimous decision. I don't think many people were maybe expecting him to get through the entire fight. He got through the 12 rounds. And I think Munguia's going into there to try and do a better job on him. Maybe set up a fight with Canelo.
Well, John Ryder, he's got a chance of this because Munguia, happy with that?
Yeah.
Munguia
let it slide.
Barely won his last fight, and his name is mad. Sergey
Derevyanchenko.
Say it a bit louder.
Derevyanchenko.
That one.
That's unreal. Fair play to you for that.
I don't think he beat him last time back in June, so
it was it was
a close, exciting fight.
Looking at that earlier, watched a bit of it. It's down as one of the fight of the year contenders, and
Was that?
Close 12-round fight between the two of them. But yeah, Munguia seems quite. He likes to put pressure on.
Yeah.
He likes to sort of bully his opponents. But I think Ryder's gonna have to go in there. He showed in our last fight, Munguia, that if you hurt him, you can put him on the back foot and pin him up against the ropes. And I think that's what Ryder's gonna have to do to get the best of him. And I think he's gonna have to try and stop him to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, Ryder's no slouch. He's obviously beaten Callum Smith. He lost to Canelo, but that's one of those ones where you go, yeah, fair enough. And I think, yeah, he has every chance to beat him and to move on, forward and through that, and that it would be great for a British fighter to go over there and do that. To talk a little bit on Canelo, I think, I'm growing slightly more frustrated with Canelo over time as
he's not active, is he?
He continues to not fight, and Benavidez is wanting to fight. I think he's fighting Jamel Charlo now, or it's due to be the next fight after fighting Jamal Charlo in the most. Actually, I might have got that the wrong way around. I don't know, but it seems a pointless fight again. David Benavidez is there and is a great fighter. And that fight's going to be, is possible. And this one with Jaime could be, or John Ryder if he wins, could be another big fight. And I think Canelo needs to.
The winner faces Canelo, because in an interview, John Ryder said to Fight Up TV, the heart, desire, and the will to win and to keep operating at this level. And then he went on to say I want to go out at the top and I want to get my rematch with Canelo. He went 12 rounds with him, so why can't he go another 12 rounds with him?
He's had, obviously had the
15, 16 rounds.
He's had the experience in there with him now, so if he can get past this fight on the weekend, which I don't think is going to be easy, then there's no reason why he can't have a rematch. It might be one of, I think he's got many fights left. I was listening this morning to his trainer, speaking to George Groves, saying that he's sort of planning towards the last few fights now, and that Canelo rematch is probably one he's going to want to set up before he finishes.
Yeah, he's at the twilight of his career now, ain't he?
Yeah.
Go out with a bang, I say. Back him, 100%. We seem to be backing all the British fighters, and they're not doing well. So maybe we might have to take a...
I don't know about Jonas won. I don't know about.
Never in doubt. I haven't been backing many of the British fighters. I went for my...
Callum Smith, I had to back because I like him.
You're a spiteful Welshman, family. That's why it is, Ben, because they're all English. Yeah. Spiteful.
The Welsh ones I'll stick up for, but...
Well, fortunately for this one, you don't... another card that's this weekend is one where you won't have to back as many Englishmen, because it's over in Ulster Hall, Belfast. And there's a couple interesting fights on that card. Particularly, I've selected that. I mean, Paddy Donovan being the main card, fighting William Andres Herrera as a welterweight. That's a really interesting fight, because last time Paddy Donovan fought on the Cameron Taylor undercard, he looked seriously impressive, I thought. And I think that'll be another difficult fight, but equally one where if he impresses, he could look really, really good.
Yes, 12-0 with 9 KO wins, and obviously a 4th round stoppage in his last fight.
Tyrone McKenna, that's no mug. He's a good fighter, that Tyrone McKenna.
Yeah, and Herrera 15-2, so it's not an awful record, but his first fight in the UK, and it'll be a good test for Donovan, I think. Good next step for him.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got Lewis Crocker fighting on the... I think that is the main event, but I never know.
Crocker is, yeah.
It's the main event, and he's fighting Jose Felix, who's a Mexican fighter, second ranked Mexican fighter, welterweight. He's 40-6, so he's had a hell of a lot of fights. Beat Gary Cully last time out, lost to Tyrone McKenna in the past. So he's a fighter that's had a lot of fights and obviously won a lot of fights. Is that something that do you see Lewis Crocker in his home? I think it's his home in Belfast event, being able to do that and obviously move on up in the rankings in welterweight, or do you think it might be just one step too many for him?
No, I think it's a tough test to experience Mexican fighter. Like, not many harder fights you're going to get, but obviously you beat Tyrone McKenna in his last fight.
I got the fighters mixed up.
On the Conlon Gill undercard.
I got the main event wrong. Oops.
That's fine.
Balls.
We won't tell anyone.
And obviously Felix lost to McKenna, so they've both had the experience of fighting him. Crocker come out with a better that. I think Crocker will get the win again this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and then obviously Crocker can move up on in the welterweight division. I'm not saying he's going to be fighting Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. or someone like that next. But he is the highest ranked Brit in the welterweights on BoxRec, so he can make his way up that division and start testing himself at world level. I think it's the Intercontinental that they're fighting for.
Yeah.
So that is vacant. So whoever wins that gets that belt, and then can obviously move on forward. It's an interesting fight. We'll do a prediction for these two.
Have you seen the venue that they're at as well? We've got Ulster a Northern Hall. Irish version of York Hall.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hall. It's tiny.
Yeah, no, it's a good venue though.
Yeah, atmosphere is going to be class. Then.
So to go, we'll jump quickly back to the Jaime Munguia fight versus John Ryder.
Jesus.
And who are we going for that one, Ben? Who's your backing?
I'm gonna go Munguia late stoppage.
What about you, Harry?
I've been back in the Brits for 2 weeks. One's lost and one's won just. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Munguia to win by points.
Now, I was tempted to go for Munguia to win, just because I wanted to say his name again. But I'm gonna back John Ryder for this one. I think Munguia's got a padded record somewhat, and I think that the Brit is gonna just stick it on him, and he won't know what's hit him.
But it's another Brit going to Phoenix, and the last Brit that went to Phoenix was Sonny Edwards, and that didn't really work out, did it?
He was up against Rodriguez, or was probably one of the best fighters of that.
True. If John Ryder loses on Saturday night, early hours, Sunday morning, do you reckon he calls it a day, or does he come back and potentially fight another fighter just as a farewell fight? That what I'm expecting Callum Smith to do after what happened to him in Beterbiev.
Yeah, I think he'll have another one after this. I think he's obviously going to be open to go in this weekend and get the win, and there's no reason why he couldn't if he has a good performance. But
it's not going to be easy for Munguia.
It might depend on how he loses it. If he gets flattened early, then it's a bit of a different question you've got to ask yourself. But if he puts in another good performance, and he's a 42-0 fighter at the end of the day, he's not going to be no mug. So
he's got experience and everything, yeah.
Yeah, and then to move on forward from that, we've got the Ulster Hall fight. So we'll start with Paddy Donovan. Are you backing Paddy Donovan to do it against another Mexican? He's a Mexican, isn't it? Williams Herrera. He fights an American. I don't know.
Donovan's younger by
Argentinian.
Yeah.
Wow. But anyway,
you don't have many fighters from Argentina.
No, not many. But do you back Donovan to win that one, or are you going for the Argentinian?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Donovan stoppage. I think he'll get another knockout win.
Same for me.
In the main event, my main event, he's younger by 2 years, so I reckon Donovan's younger. So yeah, easy win for him.
Cool. So
but Argentinians, they're tough because Lee Selby, I remember now, Lee Selby, a Welsh fighter, he went over to Argentina for a world title fight in lockdown or just coming out the back of COVID. So
I don't remember.
They're tough.
St. Joseph's, doesn't he?
Lee
Selby used to. He's retired now, and obviously lost to Josh Warrington at Adam Road, famously. That's where he lost his world title.
You didn't have to put that in, did you?
Sorry, I did.
He's laughing.
And then
2 against 1 year.
To move on to the no way. And then to move on to the main event, Lewis Crocker, Jose Felix. Who are you going to? Are you wanting to go for the Brit, or are you back in the Mexican?
It's a tough one. I'm gonna go Crocker though.
100%.
Yeah, same. So we're all
agreeing.
The only difference is that I back Ryder and you guys are backing Munguia.
The only reason why I'm backing Munguia is I'm hoping that a Brit can win now because I'm not backing him.
Yeah, true. Smart decisions. Well, we obviously, like I mentioned sort of briefly, we're going to be back on I think Thursday evening's the plan to release the episode. We're doing an episode with a special guest, our first guest, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the Saudi boxing and a few interesting talking points on there. So if you are looking forward to that, then tune in on Thursday evening. Otherwise, like I said, always we're available on Spotify or YouTube, or follow us on Twitter for all the fight announcements, all the information, all that good stuff. Anything else from you guys?
No. Have you got any shout outs?
No, I'm all good. Just looking forward to these fights on the weekend, no?
shout out my mum while I'm here. Just
What about your nan? Your nan probably listens.
I'll save that for the next episode. I'll shout out my nan.
Okay.
Yep, shout out my mum, and we'll.
You sound like that guy off TikTok. I won't say what else he says after that, mind, but
I don't
you sound like
remember
it. No,
this
you
one.
don't know him? I'll
No.
show you the video.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll catch you all in the next episode. Thank you all for tuning in.